Get ready and settle in for a few moments to listen to another excerpt from the book All My Lazy Rivers, An Indiana Childhood, written by John Bollinger. In Chapter 12, Buddy contends with his first school-age crush, a chaotic class field trip to the zoo gone awry, and of course, another epic battle with his younger brother David involving a clothes dryer and a sinister master plan. Perhaps I've said too much, so sit back, listen, and enjoy.
Amorous crushes are painful, but usually short-lived. My longest one was on Miss Tanky, our third-grade teacher, whose energy and enthusiasm were boundless. Though I'm certain she knew from whom they came, I continued to write her anonymous notes expressing my devotion and admiration. She was on more than one bowling team, and her bowling bag labeled BLT was always beside her desk. I never did find out her middle name, but I knew her first name was Barbara. It crossed my mind that if I were to become a great bowler, she might consider marrying me. For Christmas that year, I requested a miniature bowling set with which I practiced feverishly on the kitchen table. But Miss Tanky's spring engagement to be married shattered my dreams of a Jamaican honeymoon and completely destroyed any interest I had in bowling. Even my sister's popping off Wendy's head reminded me of my tragic loss. It took long division to make me forget. Long division, like the legend of sin itself, began with an apple. Miss Tanky was always fond of visual aids, and for addition she had used jelly beans. For subtraction she had used peanuts. For her division demonstration, however, something went wrong. She used an apple to represent a whole, then cut it in half, then in quarters. A quarter apple was placed on each of 4 desks in the front of the room, and one of those desks belonged to Phil Binkley, who possessed the intelligence of a baked potato, without sour cream or chives. While Miss Tanky was at the board drawing the bracket symbol for division, the rest of us heard a crunching sound as Phil ate the quarter apple on his desk. Not because he was malicious or humorous, but because he was hungry for a snack. Even Kenneth Kerstel was nonplussed by this act of sheer stupidity and rolled his eyes up as if in supplication to God. When Miss Tanky turned around, she understood immediately what had transpired and used the slip-up to her advantage by staging a quick little review of subtraction. Considering the other whimsies fate has perpetrated, I would not be shocked to learn that Phil was now a CEO or CPA balancing the budget for some giant corporation. That was the year we lost Phil on a field trip to Brookfield Zoo. In spite of every effort on Miss Tanky's part to keep us all together, Phil got separated from the group. I mean, Miss Tanky tried everything short of duct tape to ensure that we and our sack lunches were all in the same place at the same time. It was my third-grade opinion that we should just leave Phil wherever he was. I figured he'd wander eventually into the ape house and live happily ever after anyway. No one would ever even notice that he didn't belong there. It was truly his element. Even the chimps would accept him as one of their own kind. As it turned out, Phil was found trying to persuade one of the park peacocks to open its tail, even as the bus driver was beginning to swear under his breath. As I look back, I appreciate more than ever Miss Tanky's fortitude and that of every other of my elementary school teachers. If I had become a teacher of elementary school, I'm afraid the only place I'd consider for a field trip would be the Bermuda Triangle. Being saddled with 25 people like Betty Lou, Phil, Kenneth and me would tend to grate on my nerves along about April or May. If I were the teacher of such a group, I know that one of my pleasant dreams would be a newspaper headline reading something like 25 students lost in Triangle. Teacher escapes miraculously as mystery continues. It was no mystery that at home my brother and I were often engaged in the unorthodox hobby of trying to kill each other. Near the end of my third-grade year, I succeeded in making David the angriest I had ever seen him. It was a Saturday morning and the TV was on as cartoons played and Mom was vacuuming upstairs. A part of her housework that made it practically impossible for her to hear an atomic bomb blast, let alone us kids playing in the basement. After promising my then 5-year-old brother David my favorite yo-yo and 2 of my favorite marbles, I told him how he could be the star of a TV show called Life with Davy. It involved his squeezing into our big electric clothes dryer with a big round window in its door. Once inside, David would be a bit scrunched up, but would still have just enough room to wave to all the boys and girls. After several minutes of mashing my brother into the TV dryer, I closed its door as David waved and yelled, "Hi, boys and girls! It's your old pal Davy! We have some great cartoons for you today!" Watching my little brother through that dryer window triggered something awful inside me as I eyed the red start button on the control panel. It seemed the kind of opportunity I might never have again, and temptation swelled in me as my hand reached slowly for that button, which I pushed in evil anticipation. My brother, wearing his blue plaid shirt, became a spinning blur as he yelled, "Hey, let me out of here! Mom, help!" I was so mesmerized by the spiraling blur of my kid brother that only the thumping sound of his head hitting the sides of the drum inside the dryer brought me back to my senses, so that I pushed the off button. As I opened the dryer door, my brother tumbled out and said in the most menacing tones, "I'm gonna kill you!" He lunged at me and the chase was on, all over the basement and then up the stairs as he continued yelling, "Wait till I tell Mom, you creep!" It was only fortunate for me that David was still dizzy and couldn't walk, let alone run, in anything resembling a straight line. For the moment I was safe, at least until my father got home later that afternoon, but that punishment would certainly pale in comparison to whatever my brother would invent as revenge. The worst part being that I would never know when or where David would manage to put the scales of justice back into balance.
Thanks for tuning in. Go directly to John's website at www.mylazyrivers.com to get more information on how to purchase this book.